Hey smart people, Toby Salami here. Now in this video, I'm going to show you how you can build a chat app on WordPress. The essence of showing you how to do this is not so that you can build a chat app on WordPress. The essence is to show you how a lot of tools combined together can work to build just about anything that you can conceive or you can come up with. So let me start by showing you the interface, and you can go ahead to, explore other areas, expand upon this, do whatever you want to do with it. But this is a very good starting point, but a very good way too to demonstrate to you how these tools work. So I have a number of tools working here, but let me just show you first of all how it works. As you can see here on the main page, you have a number of users right here. You see you have new guy and you have end user right here. You have a menu here, which I'm not going to talk about today. It's not the focus of this tutorial. The functionality is what I want to talk about. I'm also not going to talk too much about the design. This is something that's entirely your choice. Okay, so here's how it works. As you can see, this is Toby Salami logged in here, which is me. Hello. And if you're new here, subscribe to this channel because this is where I release every single week interesting, awesome videos about dynamic WordPress development just for you. Be the first to see it. Now, this is my name, meaning I'm the one logged in right here. So if I click on any of the other two users I have on the site, let's say new guy, this will simply reload without reloading the entire page. It just loads. If I click on end user right here, you see it just loads for end user, and you can see there are no messages here. Let's say I want to send end user a message. I can just say, hey, end user, just like that, and click enter. And once I do that, the page refreshes because it has to refresh. And as you can see, it immediately loads up where end user is without me having to click on that. Now I can also switch back to new guy. And as you can see inside of here, I have all of the old chats with new guy. Let's say I want to send this new guy a message. I want to say, hey, there, or something like that, and just click on enter. Now I'm going to switch my tab to my incognito window here where I have new guy. Of course, new guy is a different user account. You can see it's also indicated by the bar you see at the top here, which I allow to show in the front end, just for some visual cues, right? So inside of new guy's account, I can click on my profile to see all of the messages that I have sent new guy, right? So let's click on Toby Salami right here, and it just loads immediately without refreshing the page. You can see on the left here, you see, hey there, 39 seconds ago, right? If you come inside of end user right here, you see no messages here because of course, new guy never sent end user a message. The only message existing between end user and anybody is between me and end user, which you can see right here. If I switch back to the other side, you can see end user has a message between me and him. It's in that way so that there are no leaked messages between users too. All right. Now, again, the essence of showing you this is not to show you just how to build a chat app. I actually intended to build a simple commenting system, which of course you can adapt this to work like that too. But I wanted to show you just how easily you can piece these tools together by showing you some extra new functionalities inside of JetEngine, JetSmartFilters, JetFormBuilder, and maybe a little bit of Bricks Builder, which I'm going to be making use of here. But just keep in mind, you can also do exactly the same thing inside of Elementor and inside of Gutenberg. So let's go ahead to demonstrate how all of this was built, shall we? The first step is that I want to come to the dashboard and just show you the list of all of the plugins I have installed here. These are my activated plugins. I have Advanced Thema for Bricks because I have Bricks Builder installed. I'm going to show you where it shines in a bit. We also have Automatic CSS. That's just for my styling, nothing as it relates to the functionality right here. We also have Command UI, which you're going to see me use quite a lot inside of this video. And when you notice that, I'm going to point you to that exact feature. Inside of JetEngine, we're also going to do some fancy things there. We have JetFormBuilder, which is, of course, what we're using here for our messages that we're sending between the users. Then we also have JetSmartFilters. I'm going to show you that too. And the rest of the plugins you have here, they have no bearing to this particular tutorial. So let me start now by coming back inside of my editor, and I just want to come to the main homepage right here, and I want to double tap my shift key, which is going to open Command UI. Command UI is an excellent plugin for you to move around your WordPress website very, very quickly without having to click here and here and here and find things. You just have to double tap Shift or use Control K, and it's just going to bring up this command interface, and you can very easily go about your WordPress website. You can install plugins, you can activate plugins, all while staying on the exact same page, right? I'm going to show you how it works as we continue in this. By the way, if you want to get Command UI, just look in the description below. If you use the code TOBI, you get 10% off your purchase, any purchase of the Command UI license. Let's go ahead now to edit this in Bricks. I want to edit that homepage in Bricks. Just like that, as you can see, very easily, I can open up my Bricks Builder interface. Now, I have Bricks Builder here loaded up. I just want to show you how I build things out here, and then I can go ahead to show you functionality, right? Inside of here, we have it's a simple 3-column section right here. There is a container inside of here. You have 3 columns, 1, 2, 3. As you can see there, nothing too fancy. I would expect that the first column here would be a header, which would be for your menu. That's how you should build it if you're actually going to be building a functional application such as this. But for the sake of demonstration, I put everything right here on the same page. You have the second column right here, inside of which you have the search filter, and you also have this filter right here, which is a visual filter by Crocoblock, right? Which is, of course, a part of JetSmartFilters, right? I'm going to show you how it all ties in together right here. We also have on the right-hand side here, the last column, which is actually the last grid cell, which inside of it just contains a simple listing grid. I'm going to show you what to build as the query on which to base that listing grid on. But basically, that's what it is. This one just carries a dynamic tag to get the name of the person who is currently logged in. Pretty simple. If you're using Elementor or Gutenberg, you know how to do these things, right? It's very, very simple. But the main purpose of this is just to show you how to build out this filter, which is going to fetch the list of users on the website and this listing inside of which we have all of that messaging thing going on, right? So let's go ahead to take a look at that. First of all, let's talk about the filters. We're going to come back here to the dashboard. I want to come to the dashboard, so I'm just going to double tap Shift and I'm just going to type in dashboard and come to dashboard home. Hold Control, click and enter, and of course I have dashboard opened right here. Now inside of here, I want to show you JetSmartFilters. We're going to open all filters, and this is the first aspect of this to show to you. You see people, items. It's a simple filter. It's a visual filter right here. You see that the data source is JetEngine, as you can see here. JetEngine Query Builder is a data source, meaning that you need to build a query on which to base this visual filter. And basically what it's going to do is on the page is going to return a list of users, let them show like their listing items, but what they actually are filters, right? So let me show you. We have a query that I already built called Query of Users. If we just open Query Builder, let's just open Query Builder right here. We see on the right, this is Query Builder. You have Query of Users right here. And if you open that up, you see inside of here, it's a simple SQL query. Don't get scared because it's an SQL query. It's pretty simple. What I did is I came down here and got from the users table. That's the first table I fetched from, the users table. And that basically will return the list of all of the users, the basic information of the users, like the user ID, stuff like that, right? Then I also added using the join function inside of here to join another table, an inner join of user meta. User meta is just a different table inside of WordPress. The entire purpose of that table is to store a list of all of the user metadata. User metadata such as what? Let me show you that. If we come back to the list of users, let's just open the list of users right here. Let's say we want to open users, counter type users, go to users, let's open all users, come inside of here. You have inside, let's just edit my user as an example. Let's come down here. You see you have a meta box, which I created using JetEngine. I just created a simple meta box of users. And inside of that, I added a meta field of profile picture with the name profile picture, as you can see right there. Now, this kind of field is not stored in the user table. It's stored in the user meta table, right? So you have to come inside of user meta, and grab what? Where current table column user ID is equal to ID. What I'm simply saying is that inside of user meta table, just match those two tables based on the user ID you find inside of those tables, which is the same on both of them. Now, which field do I want to return from there? I'm going to come inside of where and say that the user meta key is equal to, and then I'm going to return the meta key of that profile picture right there. Do you see it? Great. What I simply did was copy this and put that inside of here. So I'm simply saying, find the list of users, match that against all of the data attached to each user, and then look for the profile picture and give me that, right? Then inside of here, I'm also going to say that where the column user ID is not equal to the current user ID. I'm simply saying when you show me the list of all of the users in the front end, I don't want to see my own name. I don't want to see Toby Salami here because I don't want to chat with myself. But for example, if you're using WhatsApp as an example, you can send yourself a message on WhatsApp. So if you want that functionality where a user can send themselves messages, definitely leave that open. You do not have to add this last condition inside of here. What I did was just say user ID is not equal to, and inside of here, I used the dynamic tag option and just got the current user ID. So what I'm saying is don't give me my own ID inside of here, right? And you're pretty much done. Once you're done with that, this is what makes up that query. As soon as you're done, click on update query, publish the query, whatever, and you just have to come back inside of the filters. And then inside of that filter, you need to select query of users, the same query you just created. And then you need to link the details. Let's open this preview result again so I can show you right here. If you open up Smart Filters and then you come to the property to get value from, you can see I put inside of their ID. And where do I get that from? From inside of the query builder. If you look at the items it returns, you see here you have ID, which you return the user ID. So I type ID inside of value. And here inside of label, where you need to specify what shows to a user who wants to select whichever person to send a message to. If you want to select who to send that message to, you need to select what the label is. And the label here, you can see inside of here is display name. I want a name like new guy to show up, right? If you want maybe the user email to show up, such as newguy@tobysalami.com, all you need to do inside of display name is to put inside of the user email, right? Does it make sense? Great. Now that we know that this is done, I know all of this is pretty intermediate to advanced stuff. So if you're a beginner here, I'm going to assume a lot of things. A whole lot of things. I'm going to assume that you understand how to build basic listings, you know how to build basic, very, very basic queries, and a lot of other assumptions, right? So that's why you see me speeding through a lot of these concepts, okay? Now inside of here, under type, you see you either have the image type or the color type. In my own case, I want to say the image is the type I want to use, meaning that in the front end, I want to be able to see the user image, the image of the person, right? And so once I select image here, it's going to ask me, so where are we going to get that image from? I'm going to say meta value. And what is meta value exactly? Remember, inside of here, we specified where query clause. We also specified inside of here the meta key of profile picture. And for every meta key, if you follow the beginner course that I have released on the Crocoblock channel, the official Crocoblock channel, you will find, of course, an explanation as to how meta keys and meta values link together. Now, I have specified here the meta key of profile picture. Of course, the equivalent meta value will be whatever is stored inside of that meta key. So, of course, if you come back here, let's come back inside of the user profile. You see right here, I have the user details for the meta box. I have this meta field, which has the key of profile picture. The value is the ID of this particular image. And that's what I need to show in the front end, right? So I'm going to select that as meta value. Once I grab that, it's going to return whatever is the equivalent ID. For example, in this case, it's 331 for the user ID of 2. Right? Make sense? Great. So if you come back inside of the profile right here, you see that's exactly what we have here. If you look inside of Smart Filters, you see that's what we have inside of here. Now, once you're done, it asks you what the behavior is. If you need to be able to select multiple users at once, then you select checkbox. That's not what I'm aiming for. I'm aiming for a situation where I can select one user and chat with that one user, select another user and chat with that one user. I don't want to have to select multiple at once. So the radio behavior is correct in this case. Now down here is a little bit of something that may sound a bit complicated. I imagine there are not many people making use of this feature, but I'm going to show you just how it works right now. What I did here inside of query variable was something that was very recently introduced into JetSmartFilters in combination with JetEngine. And what it does is basically grab a value, right? Are you following me? Grab a value and send it to your listing, and then let your listing collect that value and use the query to determine what the filter should be. Of course, this is very easy. What I did here is very simple. Let me show you. Let me just show you. If you click on this dynamic tag option and click on plain query variable and just type in any variable name of your choice, right? Anything of your choice. In my case, I said get messages is what I want to call this without spaces, right? And once you're done with that and you click on back, what it does here is just create what you see right there. Now, what it does, to reiterate, is that it sends a value to your listing, and then you specify inside of the query on which that listing is based to say, hey, whatever comes through from this filter, I need you through this key of get messages to grab whatever value that is, whatever ID is of this particular user, grab that, and let's make use of that inside of the query on which this current listing is based. So let me show you how I made use of this in a smart way to switch between users for each of the users and chat with them. Let me show you. So with get messages, I have a value from here sent, right? We're going to come back to default filter value in a bit. Let's just not talk about this for now. Okay. Now leave the smart filters as is. Let's come back inside of the query on which the listing in the front end. Let's show you that listing on which that listing is based. This particular listing right here, this listing grid. You come inside of custom query. If you're using Elementor, it works the exact same way. Your listing grid, the same way, right? Just grab the listing grid and let's open use custom query. I mean, I don't have that set here, but let me set that this is by default what this listing is based on. But I want to, for the sake of clarifying this for you, let me just select a custom query right here. Let's say get current chatting user. That is the query on which I base this listing. It's a simple listing grid based on a query. Now let's see that query in the back end. Get current chatting user. Let's see how that query is set up. Let's just close this other stuff. Come back here to Query Builder. I'm going to close this too. I don't like too many tabs open. I'm sure you know this by now. We can come back inside of Query Builder and right inside of here, take note of what we find. If you select get current chatting user, this is the query on which that single listing grid is based. And here you see inside of here, it's a simple user query. As you can see, just a user query. And what I said is that inside of the include, which you have here, include or exclude, you have include here. And what I did was to make use of a simple macro. You know what? Let me open that smart filters again so that we don't get confused. Come back to the smart filters. Let's keep that open so that you understand how it all connects, okay? Now inside of the visual filter here, I have inside of here set a plain query to the value of get messages. I came up with the name get messages, right? Now inside of the query builder, what I did was to come inside of the include. Let's just delete that. So let me show you again. And then I selected the dynamic value option. And then I searched for JetSmartFilters. JetSmartFilters. You find here JetSmartFilters query, right? And what does that do? Again, it collects whatever value is sent from the JetSmartFilters and it brings that right into this query, right? So once you click on the filter, whatever you select inside of the filter, it sends that to this query, right inside this query. It sends it right here and then uses this to filter whatever is inside the query. Okay. So inside of type, we should select plain query variable right here. Inside of variable name, I'm just going to select get messages because that's exactly what I specified inside of here. And inside of here, we're going to leave dates variable as is. We don't need to do anything about the rest of those two fields. Now, inside of advanced settings, I'm going to set a fallback value here to just put a fallback value of, let's say, minus. And why is minus inside of there? Because I know that minus means nothing. See what happens if I don't put minus inside of here. Let's say I remove that and just update the query. Let's come to the front and load the page. Look at that. You see it first shows Toby Salami, then it goes down to show new guy, right? So it's showing all of the messages from all of every single user right here. But I only needed to show one item at a time. And it will show one item at a time once I select that user. Let's say I select new guy and just click on it. It refreshes and shows you just new guy. It doesn't refresh the page. It uses Ajax to just load that particular user. Now, when it did that, or before it did that, it was showing the list of all of the users. So I need to be able to set a fallback value that means nothing, right? That way, the listing grid will show, hey, we don't have anything here. So what do you want us to filter? And then when I click on that filter, the filter says, hey, I got it. Whatever you sent from that plain query variable, I got it. Now I'm going to use that inside of my query right here. Okay. So now let's click on that and click on advanced settings. And I want to just fall back to like a minus. And that means that there will be simply no user. If you come to the front end now and you just refresh that page, you see that by default, it says select a person to chat with, which is simply the default message I'm going to show here. If you see inside of the listing grid, if you come down here, let's come to general, scroll down, you see not found message. I just specified that to say select a person to chat with. So what I'm saying is this listing grid has no items inside of it, right? So you can see it right there. It has nothing. But the moment you click on one of these users, like new guy, for example, then that filter works because the plain query variable gets the value and uses it to resolve what the query should be. Does this make sense? Great. I hope it makes sense because this is pretty advanced stuff, but it can help you to do absolutely amazing things. If you think about this hard enough, you can see how it applies to multiple different scenarios in different projects you may have. Okay, let's come back now to the filter. We're almost done with inside of the filter. We can close out this query. You can see the second query I built. First, we had a query for returning the list of all of the filter items inside of here. We had a second query for returning just a single listing grid of all of the users. It's a user query listing grid right here. And inside of it, it just has a plain query variable fetching from the filter. That all makes sense, right? I want to assume that that makes complete sense, correct? Good. Now, if that makes sense, where is all of the items inside of here? All of these chat items, the messages, where are they from? I'm going to show you very easily. We have two things left to cover here. One, we want to cover how I made use of a CCT, a custom content type, to manage the messages. And two, I want to show you how I made use of JetFormBuilder to manage the sending of those messages, right? So let me show you both of those and also show you the content of this listing grid because I'm sure you want to see what's inside of there, correct? Great. Let's see how it is. We're going to come inside of here. And if we come to JetEngine, just so you know, when you're inside of JetEngine, we're going to close this query builder. We're also going to close smart filters. I don't want all of this. In fact, let's also close the homepage. We don't need that right now. Let's just focus on what's important, which is the CCT. You come inside of modules. You see right here, you have custom content types, which you can toggle on. Then you can make use of those content types. Let's just open custom content types of JetEngine. Right there, it's also found here on the menu. And if you click on chats, which you have inside of here, it's a simple CCT which I created. I added 3 fields to it, 3 simple fields. The first field is a simple text area field for message. The second field inside of here just carries the sender ID, and the last field carries the receiver ID. That's it. That's pretty much it. Just 3 fields. One carries the message, second carries the sender ID, and the third carries the receiver ID. That's all. That's all you need inside of here. If you view inside of here, let's just click on chats and just view the chats inside of here. You see all of the messages, you see the author of those messages. And of course, if you edit each of those messages, let's say we want to edit this one, you see the sender ID is 1 and you see the receiver ID is 2. This way, the message shows to only those that it was meant to show to, because it's meant for a receiver with the ID of 2 and only sent by a sender with the ID of 1. So that all makes sense. This is how you create a CCT such as this. And just like that, you're pretty much done creating a CCT. There's nothing too fancy inside of here. Now let's take a look at the query on which this particular CCT is based. It's a pretty simple query. It's a query of CCTs. So let's just take a look at that. Let's open Query Builder. And inside of here, we want to click on Get Messages. If you scroll down, you see the query type is Custom Content Query, which is what we need, right? Because that's where the messages are stored. And if you scroll down, you see that it's from the Custom Content type of chats, which is fine. That's what we need. Then if you scroll down here, you also find that the query, the additional query parameters inside of here, this is where things start to get a little bit complicated. But I'm going to show you exactly how this works, okay? Now, inside of field right here, you see that you have the sender ID in the list of whatever is inside of the shortcode results. And then inside of here, the second item, you have the receiver ID in the list of whatever is inside of the shortcode results. And of course, shortcode results is something you can very easily do using the dynamic option here and just type in shortcode, right? And getting shortcode results. That's how I got that. Inside of there, then you add what your shortcode is. But let me show you how I created those shortcodes and why I even created the shortcodes in the first place. Now, I have a question for you, a technical question. I need you to think about this. Just let's try to play this out in our mind. If a user sends a message to another user, how many people's messages do you need to see? I mean, if you load up the page where it shows the chats between you and another user, let's call you user A, let's call me user B, and you load up our chats, how many people's messages do you need to see? 2, right? Your chats, my chat. Make sense? Good. It means that in order for us to specify what the sender ID is inside of here or what the receiver ID is inside of here, we need to ensure that the shortcode result here is returning both of our IDs. It's returning the ID of yourself, the user ID of yourself. It's also returning my user ID. So that way, I'm saying that if the sender ID of this particular message is either your ID or my ID, which is what the shortcode result returns, then show us this message. Also, if the receiver ID is either your ID or my ID, still show us these messages. That way, we'll make sure that the message list we find is a list of all messages sent between just you and me in the same chat. Does that make sense? Try to rewind this, play this again, and make sure that it makes sense in your mind, because it could be very, very important in solving pretty complicated challenges in the future for a completely different use case. Let me show you how I generated the shortcodes. We're just going to come back here inside of JetEngine. I'm going to come to JetEngine, and let's just open up the JetEngine main menu right here. This is where I want to show you how I generated the shortcode. Inside of shortcode generator right here, if you take note inside of here, you have one shortcode inside of here. There's a comma, and you have a second shortcode inside of here. Did you know that you can use multiple shortcodes inside of the shortcode results dynamic tag right here? You only have to separate them with commas, right? So when you're done with the first shortcode, just as you see inside of here, you add a comma, you add the second shortcode. If you want to add a comma, add a third shortcode, this is entirely your choice. But now, this is what I want to do. I want to generate 2 shortcodes. Shortcode number 1 is going to return to me my current logged in user. What does that mean? It simply means the user ID of myself, whoever is logged in on the site. I need that user ID. So to get that, pretty simple, right? I'm just going to come inside of shortcode generator, come inside of here, leave this as is. You can see inside of this, you have user. This is fine. Inside of object field, I'm going to come down here to user and I'm going to select here ID. I'm just going to select ID. Now, selecting that will simply mean or tell JetEngine, hey, I need you to get the user ID. But JetEngine will continue to think that it is the user ID of the listing grid inside of which you place that shortcode. Unless at the bottom here, I specify the context to say I needed to get the user ID of my own user. So you're going to change the context here to current user global. And that's simply going to grab the user ID of the person who is currently logged in to your website. So once you're done, grab the shortcode, come back inside of Query Builder and paste that shortcode inside of there. That's the first shortcode down. The second shortcode, you're going to of course, put a comma because you want to return a comma separated list of all of these IDs. Here, you just need 2. So we've gotten the first ID. That shortcode is dynamic enough. Whoever logs into your website will have his own unique ID fetched inside of here. The second unique ID we need to get inside of here is the ID of the queried user. Now, you may wonder, who then is the queried user? Is the queried user not the user of the person who is logged into the website? No, not necessarily. In this particular situation, the queried user is not the person logged in. The queried user, if you come down inside of here, the difference again inside of here is just to come inside of queried user, select queried user right here inside of context, copy that shortcode. You're pretty much done creating the second shortcode right here. But who is the queried user? That question still lingers. Who is the queried user? Remember, in the front end, right here, let's come back to the front end. Let's just go home to the front end. Let's open that in a new tab. Right here, what we have inside of here is a simple listing grid. You remember, this listing grid is a listing of users, right? Now, which user is that? The user that is filtered by virtue of clicking on either of these 2 filters. So if we click on new guy, for example, the ID of new guy is conferred upon this listing grid. So it means that the queried user inside of this listing grid right now must be the ID of new guy. If you click on end user right now, the queried user changes. The queried user is now the ID of end user. And remember, what we're trying to do is to show a list of messages between the queried user and the currently logged in user and match that against those 2 fields inside of the messages. Does this make sense? Great. Because we know that, now we have the second shortcode inside of here. We can copy that shortcode. We can come back inside of Query Builder and we can paste that right here, right inside of here as the second shortcode. Once we're done, click on apply. You're pretty much done. What you just said is that when you get the list of messages, look inside of the sender ID. If inside the sender ID, you find any of the items inside of this list, inside of what list? The list of these 2 IDs returned inside of here by virtue of these shortcodes, then return that message it is correct. But also make sure that the receiver ID, the person it is also meant for, is inside this list too. The same list of those 2 shortcodes. The shortcode, I just copied and pasted the shortcodes in the 2 places, right? So I've pretty much specified how my messages should work. Now, once you're done with that, all you need to do is just update this query. Now, how do you make use of this query? The third aspect of this is what I'm about to show you. We just need to come inside of listings and components right here. If we're inside of listings and components, let's close the others. We don't need that. We want to open the listing. Remember this listing right here in the front end? Let's come back to the front end. This listing right here. We want to open inside of it and then see how each of these messages are handled. Especially how to make sure that each message, for example, the message I send is flushed to the right, the message that is received from someone else is flushed to the left, and so on. I'm going to show you all of those tricks right now. This is nothing as crazy as it looks. It's not as difficult, okay? Let me show you. We can click on Listen and Component. We can come inside of Current Chatting User. Take note of what the listing grid is based on. It is based on the query that we specified before, which is the query of the currently chatting user right here. Where is it? It's down here. get current chatting user. This is the query on which that listing grid is based on, right? Now let's edit that listing grid and see what's inside of it. Now, here is where there is a bit of difference between whether you're using Elementor or whether you're using Bricks or whether you're using Gutenberg. How you return the items inside of here could be different depending on you, right? Now, let me just show you. It's pretty simple. We have one code block inside of here. I'm going to show you that code block and how I wrote the CSS inside of here. It's very, very simple. Don't get too bothered by it right now. I'm going to show you how I made that to work. But for now, take note of what I did inside of here. So I have the chat interface inside of here. Let's just open that up. This is, of course, using Bricks Builder in combination with Advanced Thema. Now, let me show you how the chat works. Now, inside of here, we have, first of all, we have the header part of the chat, which is just returning very simply for us the username or the display name of the person whom we're currently chatting with. So that's a simple shortcode I generated here. If you come back to the back end, it's a simple shortcode you generate by coming inside of JetEngine. Let's just come inside of there. Let's bring this out here just to arrange our tabs, keep things looking tidy. You come to shortcode generator. This shortcode is pretty simple. It just simply returns the display name. You come here to object field, just come down here under user, select display name, and that's it. You can come to context and say queried user if you so desire. Click on copy, come back inside of here. You paste that inside of here. That is it. There is nothing more difficult than that. All it does is just return the name of the person you're currently chatting with, the person you queried, right? Now, the second item inside of here is the chat. You can come to content of the chat, which you can click on right here. So the content inside of that, you have each of the chat items. This is it right inside of here. You have the chat items right here. Now, you can only see one item. And why is that? Because this is a loop. This is a listing grid, as Elementor users will know this. It's a simple listing grid. However, I'm making use of the native Bricks Builder query loop, which is basically what listing grid is. And if you're also used to the native integration of Elementor for building listing grids, you can do that too if you so desire. What you just need to make sure of is that whatever is the listing you add inside of this particular listing, this is a listing we're currently looking at right now. Inside of this listing, we have a second listing right here. This listing, I didn't want to do this with the listing grid of JetEngine. We could do this if we absolutely wanted to. All you need to make sure of is that the query it is based on is on the get messages query, which we did inside of here, right? We built this query, get messages. And inside of that query, let's come back inside of here. We build this query, and remember this with the shortcode inside of it. That query, we use that to build our second listing grid here. But this is query loop inside of Bricks Builder. It works the exact same way as a listing grid. It's just we can build these things out visually right here on the page. Now, inside of the query loop settings, I selected the JetEngine query as get messages, which means that every single message that is returned inside of here will be based on that query. Right? So if you want to use a listing grid, go ahead, use that. Put that inside of here. Now there is a second thing I did here. If you come inside of here to style, and let's just scroll down to where we have attributes, you can come down here. Let's just open this up. Inside of Elementor, you will also find that inside of the advanced settings. Just go to advanced settings, go down to attributes. Now, inside of here, the attribute name, I typed inside of here, data sender ID. If you're inside of Elementor, type that inside of there just like that, separate it with a pipe character. And then after that, you want to type in the dynamic value of the sender ID for that particular message. The user ID I am returning inside of here is meant to help me to identify which of these messages inside of this chat belongs to which user, right? So what I'm saying is inside of data sender ID, I want to say, let's open this up a bit so that you can see what I have going on inside of here. I want to say get the value as, I just typed in someone as a default value. You can type in whatever you want to type inside of there. I just want to make sure that it is not just a number, right? I want it to make sense. So inside of here, I typed in someone without adding a space. Then I use the dynamic tag value of the author ID of this particular message. So each of those messages will have their own author IDs. Now, I will then specify, of course, to get this, let's just make that very, very clear. I know it's getting complicated. Just stay with me, okay? If you have to rewatch this, do that. But just stay with me. It's going to make sense, all right? Inside of here, after writing someone, I just simply got the chat author ID. The chat is a CCT. So I just clicked on dynamic data, and this model right here is handled by advanced thema. Very, very easy. So you can visualize all your dynamic data tags. If you're inside of Elementor, you of course will not have this showing this way, but it pretty much will work the same way. All you need to do is get your CCT dynamic tag, which you have inside of here as your CCT of chat. And what I returned here is the item author ID, which is the person that sends this message, right? So once you get that, you can return that inside of here. Now, when you do that, you also want to create a simple dynamic CSS value here. If you make use of Elementor, you can do the same too. Let's select that code. Let's come inside of content, and right here where we have CSS, you see I have specified the CSS class of this particular element, the chat container, and then I specified the attributes, which is data sender ID, and said the same someone, and then inside of here I returned using JetEngine macros the current user ID. Let me show you how that works. It's pretty simple. If you're using Elementor, it works the same way. All you have to do is come inside of here to macros generator, come to inside of here and get the current user ID of the currently logged in user. So we're just going to come to macros and click on current user ID. Just like that, you have the ID of the logged in user. You can copy that, come back inside of here. If you're inside of Elementor, you want to use the dynamic tag option for macros and get that current user ID. Then add all of this before and after, right? All of this after it. So it pretty much will write your CSS for you dynamically. But inside of Bricks, it's kind of visually easier. All you need to do is put the someone, whatever it is, and you want to add that macro. The macro here is pretty simple to get. If you click on dynamic data, just type macros. Macro is how it's spelled, M-A-C-R-O. There it is. Once you click on that, then you separate it with a colon, just as I did here, JE macros, and put a colon and just paste in that macros you got right there. Now, once you paste the macros in, that's it. That's done. Now, inside of here, I'm simply saying align self to end. So this is a flex container right here, the container holding all of these chat options. I'm saying that this item, whatever it is, should flush to the end. That is to the right side of this page, and then change the background to white, which is what is exactly happening inside of here. So if I'm the one who sent the message, let's just right click, inspect, and let me show you how things are working. Click on this right here. Let's just select that particular item. I just want to show you how things are working technically so you can, pick it up, understand how it's working, and you can get things working yourself. Now you see right here, it says that if the sender ID, you see the sender ID right now is for someone 1, which is my own user ID. My user ID is 1. So it sees someone 1 inside of here. It knows that this CSS belongs to it, so it gives it an align self to end. If we didn't have that inside of there, that's where it's going to be. It's just going to be on the left. But if you put it to end, you see it's right there on the right. And the background, you can change that to white. If you remove that, you see the background is the same as the others, just for some visual difference between both of them. Besides that, there's really no difference between each of these chat items here. It's just a clever way to visually show who sent what message, right? Just the way it works inside of Messenger, WhatsApp, and all of these other chat platforms. Nothing too difficult inside of here, don't you think? Let me know if you have any questions to all of these concepts we're discussing inside of here. I'll be happy to give you as much feedback as you want. This will all make sense when you watch this again, in case the concepts here are a little too complicated. Let's come back here to view the chatting user. As you can see, that's pretty much how I did this. I then, of course, Bricks Builder will ask you to sign that code just to ensure security. If you're a Bricks Builder user, you already understand that this is the case for any extra code. Then you just need to make sure that the chat item, for example, this chat item, let's click on style. You see here, I specified in the layout property of the maximum width of 75%. That way it doesn't go from right to left and take 100% of the container. It just takes about 75%. So you can see this is 75%. this is also 75% through, right? So that way it's, visually balanced. It makes sense as a chat interface. And once you're done with that, you're pretty much done with that. The last aspect of this that I'm going to make sure to make sense for you is to be able to send messages using the JetForm. You can see you have a JetForm item inside of here. This is pretty simple. I'm just going to select the form settings right here. You can see the form I chose is respond to chat. Let me show you how that form works. Let's just come back inside of JetFormBuilder right here. Let's click on forms. And then inside of forms, I want to show you respond to chat. Let's just edit that. And let's take a look at how I built out that form. We have inside of this form 3 fields. We have the first field, which is a simple text field for our message, which is what you have right here in the front end. Where is it? There, you have it. So that's a simple field. You also then have a hidden field for getting the current user ID from the value of current user ID, right? Then you also have to get the ID of the user that this message is sent to. I have this set to manual input and empty, but I also have this inside of here. Take note of how I worked on this because this is a bit tricky and it will work only if you pay attention to the details, okay? Inside of the manual input, we have empty value right here, but on the right, you take note that the default value here is specified using a dynamic shortcode, right? Now, how did I get the shortcode and what did I do to make it work? I simply did come back to the dashboard right here and I came inside of JetEngine and then I specified on the shortcode generator. Then under object field, we want to select the user ID again, just as we did before. And down here where we have the context, we want to just specify that it is the queried user we're trying to get. And then we grab the shortcode. Take note, you should not take this and just put this inside of here as the default value. And why? Because of the fact that inside of the front end, when this form is printed in the front end in the code, it makes use by default of double quotes. If you put this inside of here, let's just put it inside of the URL, see how things are looking. You see there are double quotes inside of this right here. Everywhere here, you see double quotes here. Now, if you take note of what I did inside of here, you see every single one of these has a single quote instead of a double quote. It will work the same way. All you need to do is specify a single quote instead of a double quote. For every single location you have a double quote, specify a single quote right here. You will not find this in any Crocoblock documentation whatsoever. In case you're thinking to yourself, Toby, how do you know all of this? Well, I know this by testing this. It doesn't appear in any documentation whatsoever. I just figured it out while trying to work with this. If you're trying to return any value that you can use a shortcode to return, all you need to do is change all of the double quotes to single quotes and put that inside of the default value right here. You should have it right there. On a second thought, there is also something you can do here. Maybe you can also select this dynamic value option, select here preset, select user, get user ID from current or queried user right there. Click on queried user, user field, you want to return the user ID. Let's toggle off restricted access so it can get the queried user nonetheless, and then click on update. This should work too. I mean, I just thought about that right now as we were talking, right? You can use this too and it should work just fine. But of course, I made use of shortcode here, so it works for me. Those are two ways you can get this working. Use whatever works in your own case. Now, once you're done with this, just come up here. Let's come to save. We're done. Now we have two post-submit actions inside of here. Forget about this second one inside of here. I tried to use a relationship field and then I figured, well, this is getting complicated. Why don't I just use simple fields, right? And then I have two post-submit actions inside of here. You can just use the first post-submit action to create a new chat content type. That's it. That's simply what it does. It insets or updates a custom content type of chat. It makes it publish. It ensures that the message is mapped to message. The current user ID is, as you can see inside of the hidden field right there, you should specify that as sender ID. Inside of user sent, you specify that inside of receiver ID. Just like that. It's pretty simple, right? Just specify all the fields as they belong inside of the chat. Once you're done, click on update. Now, the second option is key. Inside of redirect to page, select redirect to current page so that after a message is sent, the page reloads. But how then do we know which item to load up once the page loads? we want to return inside of our URL query argument here, user sent to, which is one of the hidden fields right here. All you need to do is just click on the add field option and select the user sent to option right there. And what it will do, once we click on update, let's come back here. Let me show you how things are working. If you click on, let's say you want to add in a new message right here, just say testing page reload. Now, take note of what is inside of the URL. Right now, the URL is cleaned. Once we click on enter, after clicking on testing page reload, see what happens. It reloads the page, but it adds user sent to equal to 2, which is the ID of the user that I'm trying to send this to, which I also returned inside of here as the user that is queried. So the currently queried user, it just passed that ID inside of the URL right here. Now, when it did that, what then happened? You noticed that this new guy just loaded up. If we select end user right now, and let's say we want to type another message to end user and just say, hey, and click enter. Now it refreshes and it says user sent to 3. And as you can see here, end user is currently selected. End user is what's selected here. So once it refreshes the page, it just knows to select end user. But how does the filter know? How does the filter know to select the user that is inside of the URL right here? I'm going to show you how it knows. All you need to do is come back to the back end right here. Just select that filter and let's come down inside of here. And you have default filter value specified here. Now, if you're inside of BricsBuilder, this is different than when you're inside of Elementor. If you're inside of Elementor, you do this differently. I'm going to tell you about how you do that. But inside of BricsBuilder, here is how you do this. First, you create a macro. You come inside of here, you come to JetEngine and you generate a new macro. So we're going to come back inside of the macros generator right here. And what we need to specify here is just to tell this macro that, hey, you know what? Once you find inside of the URL a dynamic query variable of user sent to, I need you to give me whatever is the value you find inside of that URL. So I'm going to copy user sent to. I'm going to come back inside of the generate macros and I'm going to say inside of here, I want to specify the query variable, just specify query variable. Inside of query variable name, I just want to specify user sent to right there. And just like that, I'm done. I'm simply saying inside of the URL, just find if user sent to exists and give me that ID. I need that ID. Now, how do you make this into a working thing as we find inside of JetSmartFilters right here? You simply separate that with JE macros as we find inside of, the dynamic tag of JetEngine macros and just specify query variable of user sent to. Just like that, you're done. Now, why will this work? Is because of the fact that this form is made use of inside of BricsBuilder. And when the page is being printed out, it recognizes that this is a dynamic tag, and then it looks inside of the URL and finds whatever the user sent to value is. And by default, this filter now selects that item as the default value. That way, once the page loads up, the user, whatever user is specified inside of this URL, is immediately loaded up. Now, let's say a user just decides to be smart and says, oh, let me change that value there to 5 and click enter. Let's see what happens. Click enter. Let's load it. Is it going to load? Absolutely not. Why? Because of the fact that the filter does not even recognize this value of 5 as an item inside of its current list. But if it's a value that's selected, let's say like new guy right now, and I say, hey, right here, or whatever that keyword right there is, and I click on enter and you find it right here 2 seconds ago. You see user sent to is equal to 2 and you also see new guy is automatically selected. Okay, this was an absolutely complicated tutorial. And I knew right before I started recording this tutorial that this is going to be complicated. I knew it was going to be complicated. This is why I took the time to build out the interface first of all and then show you how I did everything. Because if I had to do all of this step by step, we probably would have been sitting here for more than 2 hours, right? So I hope this video has been able to help you understand some very advanced functions inside of JetEngine, JetSmartFilters, and JetFormBuilder, and can also help you to understand how to mix and match these items, these complicated tools, and make them easy for you to build really complicated stuff, okay? That's it, smart people. This is it for this tutorial. I just thought to give you something long, something nice, something engaging, something you can learn from. And I hope to see you in the next video. Until then, I need you to do 3 things. Number 1, if you're interested in getting a license for Command UI, which I use to pretty much go about inside of my website right now, and that's what I basically use in every single WordPress installation, you should grab a license and do that with the link you find in the description below. Secondly, I wish that you can subscribe to this YouTube channel if this is the kind of content you really like. And if you like it, please like this video and share it with your friends. Let them know you found something awesome and you want to share it with them. My name is Toby Salami. See you next time. So stay dynamic.